I'd like to start by asking who here likes foreign films? If any of you said yes, you're probably not in a situation not too dissimilar to my own. As a young American, I don't often see many foreign films in our theaters. I usually have to spend time looking for them online, and most of the time they are really hard to find legally. And while streaming sites are particularly easy to find, said movies on the sites are super unsafe. Maybe it's because of the lower budget or the stories aren't as relatable. And it's really unfortunate because I think there's a lot of cultural awareness to be gained from viewing these films. It sure helped me gain some. I grew up in a little town called Bel Air. No, not that Bel Air, Maryland. Neither my childhood nor my background are very interesting. Though my mother is from another country, her culture is not extremely distant from our own. Here in America, she started life in Britain at the age of 7 and moved to Australia at age 10. Make no mistake when I say that I in no mean that these cultures are imitations or copies of one another, just that they share more similarities than, say, America and Japan. Due to this, as a child, I was not exposed to a whole lot of drastically different cultures. That was all until the first day I saw this guy. Now, I imagine the question rolling around the room right now is, what does Godzilla have to do with cultural awareness or any of that kind of stuff? Well, you'll just have to bear with me for a minute because there's a lot more to do with cultural awareness than you might think. As someone who's been watching Godzilla since the age of 4, this series has shaped me into the person I am today. It shaped my love of history, science, music, and art. One of the things I remember being most enamored with was Godzilla as a force of nature. He was like my Superman. Every time I would see one of the movies in the store, I would always have to pick it up. One day, I had come across a film that had Gojira written on the top. I think I was about 7 years old at the time, and to me, it was just a fun-filled flick filled to the brim with monster action that honestly I just ate up. I didn't care much for the actors or any of the characters in the movie. I just wanted to see Godzilla break stuff. Little did I know the monumentous implications of the film, and that what I had been watching wasn't the original, which is the one I really want to focus on. It wasn't until I was about 13 that I saw the Japanese original for the first time, and though I didn't really know it at the time, it had a pretty monumental impact on me. I saw the scenes of wreckage and I watched in awe at the great performances. At the time, we had been learning about World War II in social studies, so I had a vague idea of what had happened, but this movie about a fictitious monster made it feel more real than I had ever dreamed. For the first time in my life, as an American kid, I was able to feel empathy for a culture that I really had no idea about. It showed me an aspect of a society that had just passed its darkest hour. As a young adult, rewatching the movie again, I'm able to look back and see it through a more mature lens, and I'm able to understand, if only slightly better, the pain and suffering that these people endured. I watched the film recently again and I wanted to understand more. I was inspired to learn a lot of the really poignant cultural events that happened around the creation of the film. But before all that, let's bring it back home for a second. The first Godzilla movie came out in 1954. This was during the height of the creature feature phase in the American action horror genre. Movies like Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and Them were coming out around this time. These movies were all built on this mythology made up around the atomic bomb. We made this mythology to cope with the destructive power we had, to sort of downplay it, the capabilities of the things that we had created. It was the perfect uncharted territory for storytelling and American writers. They created films to pander to the American audiences to reduce the hysteria of having the big red button right at our fingertips. It's unfortunate how we often play Godzilla as just a normal creature feature or a cartoon character, but it was much more than that to the people who made it. To them, there were echoes of true horror. Just 9 years before Godzilla's conception, over 220,000 people were killed by the atomic bomb, one of the most horrific tragedies of war to ever occur in human history. There are definitely nods to this throughout the film, whether it be through direct reference or subversive meaning, such as Godzilla's design. Instead of scales, he's covered in rough, leathery skin meant to look like keloid scars, and his head is shaped as though it were a mushroom cloud. The film holds subtle allusions like the design choices, as well as far more overt and provocative references. One of the really distinct things in the film is its soundtrack and imagery. You can see in these moments where the city is just burning and the haunting music is playing in the background that this isn't just a creature feature. This is a glimpse into the horror of war. Godzilla represents so many different things, and despite all the original film's shortcomings, it is still an amazing movie with powerful convictions. This picture helped me to explore a part of myself and empathize with an entirely different group of people that I still don't and probably never will fully understand. Even so, through this movie, I was able to grow my awareness. The problem that we see is that we aren't getting enough of this kind of content coming into the United States. Maybe it's because the stories aren't as easy to relate to or the production value is lower, but these films are just as important, if not more, than any Marvel movie or Michael Bay flick. As a young adult, we have to be more culturally aware. If we as a culture know, if we as a country embrace foreign film, it will allow for us to be exposed to and get a better understanding of cultures not our own.